The Sherman lurches to a halt, engine growling, commander's hatch sealed. August 1944, Normandy Bocage. The Panther's frontal armor, 80 millimeters of sloped steel, could shrug off anything the Sherman's 75 millimeter gun could throw at it head-on. 140 millimeters of effective thickness, impenetrable. The German crew knows this. They angle the hull forward, confident. Their 75 millimeter KWK 42/70 could punch through Allied tanks at over a mile. They've already knocked out 2 Shermans this morning. The math is simple. Superior armor, superior gun, victory. But something is wrong. The Panther commander scans left. Hedgerows, trees, movement, infantry, 20 meters out, crouched low. He dismisses them. Riflemen can't hurt a 45-ton tank. His turret begins its slow traverse, 10 degrees per second, hydraulics whining, searching for the next target. Then a voice crackles on the American radio net. Fire mission, grid 487235, enemy armor, 1 round HE, adjust fire. 6 miles behind the front line, 3 artillery batteries, 1,805 millimeter howitzers swing their barrels in unison. A forward observer, hidden in a farmhouse attic with a map and a radio, watches the Panther through binoculars. He's connected to something the Germans don't have, a fire direction center. 1 man, every gun within range. The Sherman doesn't move. The infantry doesn't retreat. The Panther's gun is almost on target when the first shell screams overhead. It misses, by design, lands 40 meters beyond the Panther, dirt fountain. The forward observer adjusts, drop 200, fire for effect. Now the math changes. The Panther commander realizes too late he's not fighting a tank, he's fighting a system. And his thick frontal armor means nothing when the shells are coming from above, from the sides, from coordinates he can't see. The second salvo is already in the air. What doctrine did the Allies discover that made German engineering irrelevant?
By 1944, the Atlantic Wall had cracked, but the German panzer divisions remained lethal. The Panther tank, Germany's answer to the Soviet T-34, represented a quantum leap in armored warfare. Its sloped armor and high-velocity gun made it, on paper, superior to anything the Allies could field in quantity. American and British tank crews knew the grim statistics. A British report calculated that 3 Allied tanks were needed to reliably defeat 1 Panther, 3 to 1. The Tiger I required similar odds. In isolated tank versus tank duels, German armor won consistently. But the Allies weren't planning to fight fair. The British General Board of the European Theater drew a radical conclusion from early Normandy fighting. The uniformly better performance of infantry in any operation when closely supported by tanks is probably the biggest single tactical lesson of the European campaign. Not bigger tanks, not better guns, coordination. While German doctrine emphasized concentrated armor, massed panzer divisions striking independently, the Allies developed something fundamentally different. Every Sherman tank carried an SCR 508 FM radio capable of communicating with battalion and regimental headquarters simultaneously. British tanks mounted the wireless set number 19 with separate channels for squadron coordination and long-range communication. More crucially, American forces deployed a revolutionary fire direction center system at battalion level. This clearinghouse for targeting data allowed a single forward observer to call down fire from every artillery piece within range, dozens of guns, coordinated in minutes. No other army possessed this capability. The Germans had excellent tanks and experienced crews. The Allies had a network. Field Marshal Montgomery articulated the strategy bluntly. Let metal do it rather than flesh. The goal wasn't to match German armor piece for piece. It was to make individual tank superiority meaningless through overwhelming coordinated firepower. The question wasn't whether a Sherman could destroy a Panther frontally. The question was, did it need to? The crisis emerged in the Norman bocage country. Tall hedgerows, sunken lanes, perfect ambush terrain. Tank commanders rode with hatches open, shouting instructions to the infantry around them. The moment enemy fire forced the hatches closed, communication collapsed. Engineers at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, wrestled with a fundamental incompatibility. Tank radios operated on FM frequencies. Infantry used AM. A Sherman platoon could coordinate internally, but couldn't talk to the riflemen 10 feet away. In practice, this meant tanks advancing blind, infantry falling back, and German Panzerfaust teams exploiting the gap. The solution came from the field. Marine Corps tank crews in the Pacific, fighting Japanese bunkers on Bougainville in 1943, mounted standard EE-8 field telephones to their Sherman's rear deck. Simple, brutal, effective. A telephone handset in an ammunition box wired directly into the tank's internal intercom system. An infantryman could pick up the phone, speak directly to the commander inside, and direct fire without exposing himself. By July 1944, this improvised system was being replicated across European battlefields. The radio set AN-VRC-3 formalized the concept. 34 pounds, frequency modulated, designed specifically for tank infantry coordination. Simultaneously, artillery forward observers received enhanced equipment and training. Each field artillery battalion assigned forward observer teams equipped with SCR-619 radios and detailed maps. These teams acted as the eyes of the guns, moving with frontline companies. The critical innovation wasn't technology, it was doctrine. British forces integrated battery commanders directly into tank regiment headquarters. American observers trained to use 3 fire mission types: grid coordinates, polar plots, shifts from known points, all designed for speed. The average time from target identification to shells impacting, under 5 minutes. German tank crews still possessed superior vehicles, but they were about to face an invisible battlefield, one where every hedgerow might hide someone calling coordinates to guns they'd never see. Operation Cobra, July 25, 1944. The bocage explodes. First Lieutenant Welch crouches in a shell crater, map spread across his knees, watching a Panther Ausf G roll past a destroyed farmhouse 400 meters away. The German commander isn't worried. His tank's side armor, 40 millimeters of steel, can handle rifle fire. The Sherman tanks are 3 hedgerows back. Welch keys his radio handset. Fire mission. Enemy armor, direct fire, 1 round, smoke. The fire crackled back. Shot, over. 20 seconds later, white phosphorus detonates 5 meters from the Panther. The German crew sees it, a ranging shot, artillery, and panic ripples through their discipline. Forward, reverse. The commander screams orders. The Panther lurches backward, presenting its vulnerable rear. Drop 5-0, 6 rounds, HE, fire for effect. The shells arrive before the Panther completes its turn. These weren't anti-tank rounds, high explosive shells designed to fragment. They detonate around a tank, top, sides, rear. The 40 millimeter side armor holds against the first 2 impacts. The third shell strikes the engine deck, 16 millimeters of steel. Penetration, fire, smoke boiling from the louvers. The crew bails.
Across the Normandy front, this scene repeated hundreds of times. German tank commanders discovered their meticulously designed armor meant nothing when attacked from angles they couldn't defend. Panthers positioned hull down, invulnerable frontally, found themselves targeted by observers they never saw. Captain Otto Carius, Tiger Ace, later wrote in his memoir, "The Americans rarely fought tank to tank. They called artillery on coordinates. We'd hear the whistle, then impacts all around. You couldn't fight what you couldn't see." British artillerymen reported similar results. During Operation Charnwood, HMS Rodney, a battleship 23 miles offshore, used 16-inch guns to engage German armor assembling south of Caen. Spotter aircraft directed fire. The tanks never saw the ship. The psychological impact was devastating. German crews realized their armor was meaningless.
By August 1944, German armor doctrine faced an existential crisis. Concentrate panzers? Artillery observers would identify the concentration and call down battalion-level fire missions within minutes. Disperse them? Individual tanks couldn't survive coordinated infantry, armor, artillery teams. Wehrmacht after-action reports documented the shift. One Panzer Lehr Division commander wrote, "We can no longer maneuver freely. Any movement larger than a platoon draws immediate artillery response. The enemy's command of communications makes our armor advantages theoretical." Intelligence officers in Berlin studied captured American Fire Direction Center equipment with alarm. The system allowed unprecedented coordination. A forward observer at company level could direct not just his own battery, but an entire divisional artillery, even corps-level heavy guns. Mathematically, this meant a single lieutenant could call down fire from 48 howitzers simultaneously. The numbers became stark. German Panther production peaked at 250 tanks monthly in early 1944. Allied artillery shell production over 10 million rounds monthly. The math wasn't about armor thickness, it was about volume of fire that could be directed with precision at any coordinate on the battlefield. Soviet forces, watching Allied techniques, began implementing similar combined arms approaches. The Red Army's deep battle doctrine already emphasized coordination. Now they integrated radio-directed artillery more thoroughly. German tanks found themselves trapped between two converging systems, Soviet mass and Allied precision. Operational planning changed. Where Blitzkrieg doctrine emphasized independent armored thrusts, panzers breaking through and exploiting deep, German commanders now advised all armored movements must be conducted under limited visibility or at night. Daylight maneuver invites immediate artillery bombardment. The strategic implications cascaded. Fuel shortages worsened, tanks burned gasoline moving only at night, training suffered, new crews received Panthers but lacked experience in radio discipline and counter-artillery tactics. Replacement rates dropped. Destroying a tank with artillery was cheaper and faster than replacing destroyed panzers. By September, the equation had inverted. The question wasn't whether German tanks were superior, it was whether they could reach the battlefield intact. Staff Sergeant Bill Davidson presses the infantry phone handset against his ear. Behind him, his Sherman idles, engine rumbling through the French village's shattered streets. Smoke drifts between stone buildings. "Tank Commander, this is Able Company. Enemy armor, you're 2 o'clock, 200 yards. Can't see it, stone wall blocking. Need you to put 1 round high explosive over the wall. Over?" Davidson drops the phone. "Gunner, traverse right, elevation +2. HE loaded?" "Loaded." The 75mm roars. The shell arcs over the wall. Detonation. A moment later, secondary explosion. Fuel ignition. Black smoke columns. "Good hit. Panzer IV burning. 3 infantry running your direction." Machine gun fire erupts. The infantry phone goes dead.
Davidson keys his radio net. Fox 6, this is Fox 2-3. Enemy infantry, grid coordinates. He reads numbers from his map board, voice steady despite the bullets sparking off his turret. 3 miles back, an artillery forward observer receives the call. He's embedded with a rifle company, watching the village through binoculars from a church steeple. He can't see the infantry, too much smoke, but he doesn't need to. He knows the grid coordinates. Fire mission, grid 492718. Enemy infantry and open, will adjust. 1 round, HE. The first shell lands. Too far. Drop 100, fire for effect. Davidson hears it before he sees it, the freight train howl of multiple 105mm shells inbound. 6 rounds bracket the street ahead. The German infantry disappear in smoke and fragmentation. An hour later, the village falls. American infantry find the destroyed Panzer IV, hit twice, once by Davidson's HE round, again by artillery. The crew never had time to see who killed them. No duel, no fair fight, just coordinates, radios, and shells arriving from 6 miles away. One sergeant in a Sherman talking to a lieutenant in a steeple, directing guns the enemy never saw.
The German Panther tank's armor layout represented sophisticated engineering. Frontal glacis plate 80 millimeters thick, angled at 55 degrees from vertical. Simple trigonometry calculated the effective thickness, 140 millimeters, against a perpendicular shot. Even the Tiger I's 100 millimeter vertical plate provided less actual protection. But German designers made a critical trade-off. Side armor 40 to 50 millimeters, rear turret 40 millimeters, engine deck 16 millimeters. The Panther weighed 45 tons, already exceeding its original 35-ton design specification. Adding thicker side armor would have stressed the transmission and suspension beyond operational capability. German engineers gambled that Panzers would fight hull down, presenting only frontal armor to enemies. They gambled on fair fights. Allied artillery delivered something else entirely. A 105mm HE shell, the M1 high explosive round, carried 4.8 pounds of TNT equivalent. Detonating near a tank, it created 2 effects: overpressure wave and fragmentation. Against 16mm engine deck armor, fragments could penetrate. Against crew hatches, vision ports, the vulnerable turret ring, damage accumulated. The Panther's armor quality deteriorated as the war progressed. Metallurgical analysis by British and American laboratories revealed critical flaws: inadequate nickel content, less than 0.5% in late war samples, improper heat treatment, flame hardening processes rushed or skipped entirely. This produced armor that cracked under impact rather than deflecting shells. The turret traverse rate proved equally problematic. Manual hydraulic systems powered by the main engine, 10 degrees per second maximum. The Sherman's electric hydraulic system, 20 degrees per second. In close-range encounters, village fighting, hedgerow ambushes, this meant German crews took twice as long to track moving targets. Combat reports documented the compound effect. A Panther ambushed from the flank needed 6 to 12 seconds to traverse its gun onto the threat. In that window, an Allied tank could fire 2 rounds, infantry could close with explosive charges, or, most commonly, artillery shells would arrive on coordinates already transmitted. The math was unforgiving. Superior frontal protection meant nothing when the enemy refused to attack frontally.
Hauptmann Werner Miller commanded a Panther company in Panzer Lehr Division. His diary, recovered after the war, captures the psychological erosion. July 14, 1944. We cannot move in daylight. Yesterday, 3 tanks destroyed by artillery fire while repositioning. Not enemy tanks. We never saw enemy tanks, just coordinates called by some invisible observer. Where? A farmhouse? A hedgerow? A crater? Every building might hide someone with a radio. We sit in positions for hours, waiting. The crew's nerves fray. Our armor is worthless when shells fall from above. American forward observers described a different perspective. Lieutenant Charles Hamill, 29th Infantry Division. You learn to read terrain differently, not where can I hide, but where can I see. I need elevation, camouflage, clear line of sight to likely enemy positions. My radio becomes more valuable than my rifle. I'm not fighting the tank, I'm just giving coordinates to men 6 miles away who'll do the fighting. The cognitive burden shifted. German crews operated in constant uncertainty. Any movement might trigger artillery they couldn't see, couldn't predict, couldn't fight. American crews knew they had backup. If a Panther appeared, you didn't need to penetrate its armor, you called coordinates. British tank commander Captain John Stirling noted the effect. German tanks often retreated after first contact. They weren't cowards, they were rational. Once artillery started ranging them, staying was death. Better to withdraw, reposition, try again. But we learned their withdrawal routes, pre-registered artillery coordinates there too. The exhaustion compounded. German crews averaged 4 hours sleep nightly, constant movement between positions, night driving to avoid observers. American artillery crews worked in shifts, maintaining 24-hour availability. Letters home reflected the toll. One captured German tanker wrote, "We have excellent tanks, but we're fighting an entire system, radios, observers, artillery, infantry, all coordinated. Our tank is just one piece. Their system has 1,000 pieces. The armor protected the body. Nothing protected the mind."
German counterattacks evolved rapidly, but always reactively. Directive issued to Tiger units summer 1944. Avoid static positions. Move immediately after firing. Artillery observers require time to call coordinates. Deny them that time. This created new problems. Constant movement increased fuel consumption. Mechanical reliability suffered. The Panther's average operational readiness fell to 36% by late 1943 compared to 65% for the simpler Stug III. Moving tanks broke down. Static tanks got shelled. German forces attempted radio jamming. Limited success. Allied frequency hopping and encrypted communications proved resilient. The Fire Direction Center system distributed calculations across multiple channels. Jamming one frequency didn't stop the shells. They tried counter-battery fire. German artillery would attempt to target Allied forward observers, but observers operated individually, dispersed, mobile. Destroying one didn't stop the system. Another observer, another radio, same coordinates. Camouflage discipline intensified. Captured German training manuals from late 1944 emphasized no fires, no movement, no radio transmission within 5 kilometers of front line. Any signal can be intercepted, located, engaged. The most successful German adaptation came from defensive doctrine. Fighting from prepared positions with pre-sighted firing lanes, infantry support, and multiple fallback routes, German armor could still exact heavy casualties. The Battle of Villers-Bocage showed this. Michael Whitman's Tigers ambushed British armor at close range, where artillery couldn't respond fast enough. But such victories became tactical exceptions. Sources conflict on effectiveness rates. Some German reports claimed 60% of their tank losses came from artillery, not enemy armor. Allied estimates suggested 40%. Both agreed the majority of armored combat deaths resulted from indirect fire, not tank duels. The Allies analyzed captured Panthers extensively. They discovered armor quality issues. Late-war metallurgy so poor that shells which should have been deflected instead caused catastrophic spalling. The Germans had responses: add Schürzen side skirts, hang spare track links for additional protection, But these added weight to already overstressed drivetrains. Every German solution created new vulnerabilities. The Allies simply adjusted coordinates.
December 16, 1944. The Ardennes, Hitler's final gamble. The Germans assembled their most powerful remaining armored force, 550 tanks, including King Tigers and Panthers, and struck through the wooded hills where Allied defenses were thin. Initial success came from bad weather: fog, clouds, snow. Allied aircraft grounded. Forward observers couldn't see. For 3 days, German armor advanced. Then the weather cleared. Allied air power returned, but more critically, so did artillery observation. The massive German columns, concentrated on narrow roads, became perfect targets. Forward observers called coordinates on traffic jams, supply columns, tank formations waiting for fuel. The Fire Direction Center system unleashed its full potential. Corps-level artillery, dozens of batteries, coordinated fire missions dropping hundreds of shells on single map squares. By Christmas, the offensive stalled. Not primarily from tank versus tank combat, from artillery degradation. German commanders reported 70% of their tanks immobilized by mechanical failure or fuel shortage, but survivor accounts emphasized the constant artillery bombardment that prevented repairs, blocked fuel delivery, destroyed supporting infantry. The Battle of the Bulge proved the concept completely. German armor superiority, real, measurable, undeniable, meant nothing when operational maneuver was impossible. The legacy extended beyond 1945. Modern combined arms doctrine traces directly to these principles: distributed communications, forward observers with direct fire authority, integrated multi-domain coordination. The U.S. Army's air-land battle concept of the 1980s, NATO's network-centric warfare, current precision strike systems, all evolved from the fundamental insight that battlefield superiority comes not from the best individual weapons, but from the fastest, most flexible coordination system. German engineers built magnificent tanks. Allied planners built a web of radios, observers, and artillery that made individual tank superiority irrelevant. The secret wasn't a weapon. It was a rule: coordinate everything. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical or documented sources.